Members, this bill references probationary sentences for nonviolent offenders. Representative Edelson moves House File 3105 be re-referred to the General Register. And Representative Edelson, you have an amendment. I leave it to you whether you want to move that now or describe the bill first. Or
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I move the A1 amendment.
very well. Representative Edelson moves the A1 amendment. We'll put the proposal in the form that she wishes us to debate it today. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. House File 3105, as amended, is before us. Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Chair. House File 3105 is what we're calling the primary caregiver bill. It encourages alternatives to incarceration for primary caregivers. Currently, judges and courts are able to consider social and economic factors in granting dispositional departures. However, this bill provides clarity that's taking one's relationship with their child into consideration. Chair, I would like to just move to my testifiers in terms of efficiency of time.
Very well.
Thank you very much. My name is Tanya Hunsey. I'm an incarceration survivor. I'm also the founder of We Rise Leadership Collective. We're a collective of formerly incarcerated women doing systems and policy change with a restorative, transformative, and healing justice lens. I know that many of you on this committee have heard my story, but I want to tell it again, and it's not just my story, it's so many other people who have been touched by the criminal justice system in Minnesota. It's not just our story, it's also our children's story and the continued intergenerational trauma that happens due to incarceration. My incarceration started at the age of 12. I came from an abusive home with a lot of chemical dependency issues, and from that didn't have a stable and loving home to be in. And so I went to the streets to survive, and you know, the only way that a young girl survives in the streets is either by selling drugs or selling their body. And I like to say that I was privileged enough to be able to have a connection to sell drugs, because I don't think that I would be able to find healing from the other way. At the age of 16, I became pregnant, and I remember thinking that I wanted nothing more than to be able to give that child the love that I didn't have, to give them the stability and the home and the family that I never had. And I remember making a vow that I would never let my demons affect this child, and I failed miserably because I continued to use drugs because I didn't know how to deal with my trauma. And from that, I continued to be incarcerated. And I was incarcerated 25, in and out of incarceration, 25 years of my life. I have a 25-year-old, I have a 19-year-old, and I have a 5-year-old. And my 19-year-old and 25-year-old still deal with the trauma of me being incarcerated throughout their lives. They still come at me and say, you know, but you were incarcerated. You weren't there for me, Mom. And I can't take that away from them. Even my 5-year-old who's never been away from me, barely to go to the bathroom, as most moms in here understand that. Some dads too, I'm sure. But I still deal with the fact of trying to bond with him and to hold a bond with him, because I have this fear, this underlying fear that something's gonna happen and I'm gonna be incarcerated again and I'm gonna lose my child. I'm gonna lose that bond with them. While incarcerated, I spent, you know, at one time I spent a year without being able to see my 2 children, because at that county jail did not have, they didn't allow minors to visit if you were not sentenced, and I wasn't sentenced during that time. My 2-year-old at the time, I would sometimes get money to be able to call him, maybe once or twice, you know, maybe once a month, and I would spend that time singing "You Are My Sunshine" to him. When I was finally released from that county jail a year later, and I walked up to him, and he looked at me and didn't realize who I was until I started singing "You Are My Sunshine." And then he ran up to me and said, "Mama," and jumped in my arms. The continued trauma of being incarcerated and coming into the community and trying to build a life after you've been separated for so long, it's a continued, it doesn't end. Incarceration doesn't end the day that we walk out those doors. It's just beginning in some senses, because we're trying to build a life and trying to have a foundation. If we could just keep people in the community, give them the supports in the community, because most of the time when we're looking at women especially, and in Minnesota last year, 37,000 women were out released from incarceration, 37,000. That's jails and prisons, and, it doesn't state how long of those stays were, but that's the number, and that's from the Prison Policy Initiative. But if we look at that, that's how many families that are affected. How many times are they trying to rebuild a life over and over and over again? If we could keep them in the community, because most of those times it's about drug addiction, it's alcohol addiction, it's surviving poverty. And if we could do that and let the community take up and start to build around a support network where we don't have to continue to re-enter, we don't have to continue that trauma. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hansen, for your powerful testimony. And also, I want to acknowledge your leadership on our participation in our Sentencing Guidelines Commission. You bring the same level of humanity and wisdom to that body that you bring into this body as well. So thank you for your service. Commissioner Schnell, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. It's a pleasure to be here to speak to this issue. I think it's really important to put this in context, and that context really is that in accordance with the current sentencing guidelines, the courts are able to place a defendant on probation when the risk to the public is outweighed by the evidence that they're motivated to rehabilitation. That is the reality. And so these provisions exist currently in sentencing policy. The ability to now look at and address the primary caretaker issues, I think reflects really smart policy. It reflects the ability of the courts to apply the kind of the right resources, the right fit, at the right time for the right reason. As Tanya was talking, I couldn't help but think about the time I've had to spend with some of the mothers groups at Shakopee. And oftentimes we're talking about people who are incarcerated for very short periods of time, matters of months, in some cases less. I don't think it's possible, as I think about my own children and being separated like that, I think about the impacts on that family. And frankly, I think about the numerous consequences that oftentimes come to children who themselves were not involved in any type of wrongdoing, yet they bear oftentimes the impact of the incarcerated parent. And I think we have to recognize the fact that the consequences for these families, the impact on these children due to the separation, ultimately is contrary to the fundamental interest that we have in creating community safety. And so as the department representative of the Department of Corrections, I stand in full support of this. I think this is and does reflect smart policy that is in the long-term best interest of community safety. And I thank you for the opportunity to offer my view.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Chair, Professor Rebecca Schlafer is, like many people I hear, has the flu today. So we do have a substitute for her. Dr. Laurel Davis will be testifying from the University of Minnesota. She's a researcher.
Very well. Welcome to the committee, Dr. Davis.
Thank you. Thanks for having me in replacement for my better substitute. I'm a researcher in the Department of Pediatrics. My research focuses on vulnerable children and families. Several years ago, me and Dr. Schlafer set out to learn as much as we could about children in Minnesota who had been affected by parental incarceration. We used the Minnesota Student Survey, which is a statewide survey of youth, and we found that 1 in 6 youth in Minnesota reported a history of parental incarceration, which is a truly stunning statistic. And what's even more stunning is that as we started to dig into the responses on other parts of the survey, we found that these young people who'd had an incarcerated parent fared worse than their peers on every single measure of health and development. They are more likely to be anxious and depressed and to try to commit suicide. They are more likely to skip school. They're more likely to use alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and other drugs, and they're more likely to be engaged in violence. So simply put, in every way that you can look at these young people, they are doing significantly worse than their peers. It's important for you to know that about 2/3 of men in Minnesota prisons are fathers of minor children, and more than half of them lived with their kids before they were arrested. And for women, those rates are even higher. 3/4 are mothers of minor children, and the majority of them were living with their kids prior to arrest. Research has conclusively shown that consistent caregiving is a fundamental ingredient of child development. We know without a doubt that separating children from their parents is traumatic and it can have devastating consequences for their health and development across the life course. But our policies call for doing that in many cases where other options actually could be more efficient and also avoid making children the collateral consequences of their parents' mistakes. Furthermore, incarceration rarely addresses the challenges that parents are facing that cause them to become incarcerated in the first place. So for example, if you consider a single mom and a DWI offender who is sentenced to 3 months, her children's lives are turned upside down, and meanwhile, the mother isn't going to be incarcerated long enough to receive effective substance use treatment, and she's been punished for her crime, but so have her children, and neither she and her children are better off than before she was incarcerated. The legislation before you aims to provide decision makers with the information they need to best support children and families in the state of Minnesota. The courts will be better informed as they determine whether all of these youth in Minnesota need to be separated from their parents or not. And it's likely that in many cases, alternatives to incarceration could accomplish the very important goal of holding parents accountable for their crimes without unnecessarily harming their children. And for that reason, I urge you to support this House file. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. And I'm sorry, Dr. Davis.
Yes.
Just a thing we have to do. Can you, just for the record, state your name?
Certainly.
Name for the record.
Laurel Davis.
Very well. Thank you.
Chair Mariani and committee members, my name is William Ward. I'm the State Public Defender for Minnesota. I echo a lot of the same remarks that have been provided to this committee already, and I suspect that many of you think I'm going to be talking about the clients in particular, but I also want to focus on the children. Obviously, as has been stated, the importance of family unification is of utmost importance for the long-term success of our children. And basically, as has been stated already, that the taking away the children and the effects of the mistakes of others, the long-term consequences, too oftentimes makes them my clients. And that's why I'm in support of this bill. And I want to talk really briefly about really what this bill is doing. And as Commissioner Schnell stated earlier, there are tools available to the courts now through the Sentencing Guidelines Commission and by statute. And I am in support of the bill as amended to make sure that we address that those statutory provisions and the guidelines exist at this current time. But just like on bail situations, that does not mean the court is following the guideline recommendations. Just like on the rules of the Supreme Court, that does not mean the courts are following what the rules are in operating in their courtrooms every single day. This bill is not particularly onerous. It's first asking the court to make a determination if the person is a primary caregiver. And second is if and so that parent or that individual is, the court may use that as a consideration regarding particular admissibility to probation. It's not onerous, but it's an incredibly important policy for this committee to consider. It's not a get out of prison free card, which I'm going to hear over and over. This is make it easy for people. That's simply not true. If you look at the onerous conditions that the court can apply if indeed sentencing this individual to probation, I'll bet you most of you in this room do not abide by those conditions. So let's please not think about this as an easy way out and not putting people in the prison. It's about giving individuals the tools for success. I also ask you to consider this bill like you consider other bills when you think about victims in this state, because the victims in these cases truly are the children. Actions taken by parents, as the professor said, it's the kids who suffer. They are traumatized when they're separated from their kids, and all of you know that that trauma leads to oftentimes long-term consequences for the child. None of you know this, but as part of my volunteer work, I'm a board member of a nonprofit called My Very Own Bed. It's a very simple concept developed by an executive director named Michael Allen. And what we do is supply beds to kids in need in this community. And you'd think that's not a big deal. It is a big deal. I had no idea how many of our children do not have a bed to sleep on. So this nonprofit supplies beds, box springs, mattresses, sheets and pillows and embroidered blankets so a child has a place to sleep at night. And the reason we do this is because the data is clear that with a good night's sleep, children will succeed. And success is what we all want for all of our communities. We talked about youth intervention earlier. That is youth intervention. It's helping provide some measure of success for kids to have a place to sleep, and it's helping out parents who do not have the means to do so. I tell you that because this bill will do the same thing. I saw the overlap in my job, and the overlap is this. If I have an ability in my professional career now of 32 years in the criminal court system to help people, the best way I can help people is to keep them from coming into the system in the first place. That's what this bill will do. We tend to forget about the consequences when we think we're doing good and making good decisions, but for so many clients of mine who suffer from mental illness, addictions, and they're not making decisions, but they're reacting without thinking. It's the children who are suffering those consequences, and this bill allows for an opportunity for children to succeed long-term, which is important for all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Members, Commissioner Schnell and Ms. Hansi. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were company rec. I just wanted to let you know the commissioner stepped out, and the reason he did is because he's meeting with survivors in a few minutes. And so I just wanted, if you had any questions for the commissioner, we can always have him come back at a future time and answer those questions. But at this point, Representative Edelson, I think we're open for questions and comments from the committee. And at some point, members, I'll stop us and see if anyone else in the public wishes to comment on the bill. With that, Representative Johnson.
Mr. Chair, Representative Edelson, one thing that we've been working on over the entire time I've been down here is sentencing disparity. I have a concern on this bill that it's going to increase sentence disparity. Because what you're looking at on this bill is if a person that commits a crime as a child, they're going to do downward departures, and a lot of them. Just the probation, no prison time at all. But if you're in the unfortunate instance of committing a crime and don't have a child, you're going to go to prison, by the way this bill is written. We've worked very hard over the years to have consistent. That's why we started Sentencing Guidelines Commission, so we can have standard sentences throughout the state. This bill is going to blow that up. So how are you going to resolve that issue to stop the disparity in sentences between two people just because one has a child and one doesn't?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ward.
Commissioner Johnson, I respectfully disagree with that, and here's why. Right now, many courts believe that this is considered a socioeconomic issue that cannot be used in a mitigating way. And what this bill does is allow for this to be an additional mitigation that could be taken into consideration as to whether or not a person is particularly amenable. The bill does not say shall sentence someone to probation, but it provides for another factor to be looked at as a mitigating factor to determine whether or not they will depart. That will not be a disparaging thing from a person with children or not having children. It's another factor that can be looked at in addition to the other factors that are addressed in statute and also by the Sentencing Guidelines Commission.
Representative Edelson.
Chair, Dr. Davis also had a comment on this.
Dr. Davis, please.
I'd like to contest the idea that all disparities are bad in this instance. We have sentencing guidelines for a reason, as you indicated, and we also have latitude within sentencing guidelines for many very good reasons. The current sentencing guidelines stipulate a number of disparate factors that can be used as judges try to make these decisions. And those exact factors exist for a reason. They exist because we have determined as a community that they matter and that they could be instrumental in terms of what kinds of outcomes we expect in different scenarios. And so I would like to put forth the idea that disparity in sentencing is not necessarily a bad thing. The place where we'd like to think about eliminating disparities are along personal characteristics that people can't change, things like their race. Sentencing disparities along racial lines are a very bad thing. But not all disparities are wrong in this instance.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, members, testifiers, any disparity is wrong. They need in the criminal justice system, justice is blind. It treats everybody the same. That's why the lady has the,
It doesn't.
Chair, I would strongly disagree with that justice is blind.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess, yes, I just want to acknowledge, right, I mean, disparity, it just means difference. It means that you're making a difference based on certain factors. And if you look at the sentencing guidelines, there are, as was referenced by the testifiers, there are a number of elements to that. I guess I just want to make a note that the structure of the bill is really focused on the defendant's amenability to probation, and that is a test that is in the law right now. And what the bill and what the law recognizes is that if someone's going to be particularly amenable to being on probation, then there's a particular reason to put them on probation rather than spending the time and money and having them be in prison. And that's something that's in the law right now. What the proposal recognizes, it seems to me, is the fact that there are defendants who are going to be particularly amenable because of a factor that may well be overlooked by courts, which is their connection with their families. Now, I will say that as an advocate for children, it seems to me that there's also a significant impact on children, on families, as a part of this, which I'm so glad that we're recognizing. But to your point, Representative Johnson, it seems to me that this is squarely in the current set of disparities, and that if someone shows they're particularly amenable to probation, right now under the law, they're more likely to get probation. Seems like a good thing. And that's how the law works currently, and this would simply enhance that along the way. So I want to thank Representative Edelson and the testifiers. And I guess finally, Mr. Chair, to just point the committee, because this particular committee was not part of it, the Corrections and Early Childhood Committees had a joint hearing about 2 weeks ago with Chair Considine to hear about the impact of incarceration on kids and families, and talked a lot about some of the points we've made so far, featuring Dr. Schlafer, among others. And if folks have not seen that, I thought it was some really powerful testimony. Really urge everyone to check it out. So thank you, Representative Edelson, to your testifiers.
It struck me that the proposed legislation is constructed on existing structure and approaches in our law. In other words, there are mitigating factors that are part of sentencing decisions. Not only has that been affirmed through the guidelines of the Sentencing Guidelines Commission, but it also exists in the form of precedents and court decisions as well. With that, members, I'm going to open it up to see if anyone from the public wishes to comment for or against the bill. Yes, please come forward. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and give us your thoughts.
My name is Linda Garrett Johnson, and I actually wasn't planning on speaking today. I was planning on just listening. As I have said to you, Chair Mariani, I had served about 25 years ago on the Extended Jurisdiction Juvenile Advisory Committee for the state of Minnesota when they created one, and I was also on the Umbrella Rule Advisory Committee, in which the Department of Human Services and the Department of Corrections worked together, and they were both looking at these types of issues. one of the reasons why I wanted to speak today was when the issue of disparities came up and the fact that justice is supposed to be blind. And the one thing that I just wanted to say, it's probably one of the only things that I will say about this, is that those of us in this room who are of color know that justice is not necessarily blind. And the way that one of the biggest ways that disparities can play out in the criminal justice and juvenile justice systems both are whether or not you have access to an attorney that can pay to state your case. Nothing wrong with public defenders at all. They do a great job. However, it's one thing to have an attorney that you can spend a lot of money on, and it's another thing to have a public defender that has a huge caseload and has lots of people to see. So I just wanted to point that out, is that that's one of the ways in which the juvenile justice system has had some disparities forever. So when we're thinking about something like this and thinking about a departure from the sentencing guidelines, I think that what we want to consider is that for a young person that does not have access to a lawyer that can really speak their case and really plead it and bring all kinds of research to the judge, they may or may not be able to access some of the things that we'd like them to. So I hope that this committee would consider this very needed, I feel, piece of legislation.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett Johnson. And just in full disclosure, Ms. Garrett Johnson is also part of a very broad extended family, in my family. And so we've known each other for quite a while, and I know your work in the public sphere, and I want to thank you for that on behalf of justice and racial justice and criminal justice reform. Thank you. Any further testimony? Please come forward. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and share your thoughts with us.
My name is Sheila Delaney, and I wasn't planning to speak today either, but I felt compelled to speak because as this conversation continues, I think many of us are in agreement with the premises included in this bill, but I can foresee the issue of disparities being raised as an issue that perhaps could stop this bill as it progresses throughout this legislative season. I appreciate you raising that issue. But what I'd like to state is that how could it be possible for a judge taking a look in a holistic way of all the factors in someone's life would then negatively penalize the next person in front of the judge? I know that's not how it works, but there's not a quota system. There's nothing to preclude, if I was a mother, that judge would be considering the whole picture of my life. And speaking to Representative Pinto's point, simply being able to factor in the fact that I was a parent does not prohibit any further justice for the next person in front of that judge. So I don't see that disparities argument as holding weight, and I would hate for that to be carried forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney. Any further testimony? If not, then Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Chair. This bill is to look at all of us and look at compassion for children. That's really what this is about. I did some policy work with incarcerated women at Shakopee this summer, and the reason I reached out to, Tanya and I started working together is because I noticed a lot of the women that were there were short stays, that they had to find places for their kids to go. And they, one woman, Professor, you used the example of a DWI. One woman had her second DWI was incarcerated, and she had not received a Rule 25. She had not received any treatment. And it just made me think, are we doing this right? And I think that's a question we can ask. Tennessee and Massachusetts actually have passed this legislation. We do have a Republican in the Senate as of this week, and so I think that this can be bipartisan. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Edelson, for bringing us this important bill. It seems to me that our work here is about constantly driving humanity in all our actions, including our laws and criminal justice and public safety. And so in that spirit, I welcome your bill. I also want to acknowledge Chair Pinto's hearing on children, or rather parents, mothers in particular, who are in our correction system, and the impact through testimony that you and Chair Constance and I were able to unearth in that joint hearing. I really do hope that it will be our continued practice in this committee that we constantly hold people accountable, and we constantly do that in a humane and life-sustaining and community-building way. With that, members, Representative Edelson renews her motion that House File 3105 as amended be re-referred to the General Register. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No. Motion prevails. Thank you, Representative Edelson.